This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
What is up, Spurs Nation? It's your boy Rob from BuckingSpurs.com. We got a great episode for you today. We got Destin from Clan the Spurs Fan on YouTube, or Spurs Wave on Instagram, is dropping in. We're going to talk about our 4-1 start. We're going to get into our starting lineup a little bit. And of course, we're going to talk about Lonnie Walker. Then we're going to finish it off talking a little bit about Western Conference basketball. Who's surprising us? Who's falling off? You know, where do we stand? How do we feel about the West so far? But first, instead of dropping my beat, Clan put out a nice Spurs tribute song out on YouTube. Let's hear it.
I ain't gon' say too much, especially when your coaches go pop it. Lakers and the Clippers really think that they some hot shit. Stop it, offense cook you up like Betty Crockett. Cautious, about to put the conference up in hospice. Goddamn, gotta do it again. T, fill up a rat to the flick of the pen. TC to me trash until you mint. When Spurs come to finger, you feel like pin. Hitting Jackson, now you miss like Ben. Start to the Duncan, so you better repent. Lament, I meant attempt to mention sentiment who season.
What is up, Spurs Nation? It is Saturday. We're recording this on a Saturday afternoon. Spurs are sitting here 5-1, and we're joined by Clan, the Spurs Fan from YouTube, or Spurs Wave on Instagram. What's up, Clan?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm listening to your new song every once in a while. Our listeners just gotta hear a little taste of it. And before we start getting into, everything Spurs basketball, what's happening on the court, it's a pretty dope track, bro. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about it, if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah. What's up?
So when I'm listening to your song and the way that you rap and stuff, it takes me back. It definitely takes me back to, like, I get a little Eminem vibe off of it. I get a little bit of a Twista, a little bit of fast-paced lyrical magic happening there. Tell me a little bit about your style of rapping, and what made you want to drop a couple, because this is part 2, right? This is part 2. You had a verse track out. So tell me a little bit about what your process is going into writing a Spurs track, because we need more of that. I love it. And also just kind of your process, like you went through writing it, recording it. Do you do everything yourself? Or what do you do? And just, how you went about your style. Yeah,
so I'm actually, it's funny you bring up Eminem, because I'm actually the biggest Eminem fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I grew up listening to nothing but Eminem. Even now, it's like he's the greatest of all time, period. I don't even think it's an opinion at this point. But yeah, and you said Twista, and I do listen to Twista growing up too. But yeah. I mean, as far as me, like, writing it, I do everything myself. As far as, putting it in the program, I use Reaper, and I do all that. But as far as writing it, it's actually not that, for me, it's not that difficult to write it, only because I love the Spurs so much. And when I listen to a beat, because that's Camelot, I just did like a remix to Camelot. And when I listen to a beat, it's really easy for me to kind of flow with it, or see where I should change up the pace, or where I should put certain things in. So, so basically the process of actually writing it, I just listen to Camelot again, listen to some of his flows, because it's kind of the same. It's a very simple flow the entire time.
Taking the melody, I try to just switch up the words.
In Camelot? Oh, do I remember the words in Camelot?
No, like you listen to that jam, and like, cause I do that too. Like I don't write rap lyrics, but I used to dabble in like blues music, and I would listen to the song, get the melody of the lyrics, right? There's like a lyrical melody along to them, and then I would just kind of change out the words and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's all it is. So I just listen to how he starts off the song, just to make it familiar, and then I just kind of did my own thing. But it's definitely got some Eminem vibe in it. Not on purpose. It's just the fact that I used to listen to him, or I still listen to him all the time.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that I don't have like this like intimidating voice or demeanor. So when I'm writing something, I do try to be a little extra, like maybe zany with the words, or like kind of weird and fun a little bit more. And when I'm aggressive, I want it to be a little crazy. Because people I listen to, like Eminem or Hobson, maybe Eminem has more of an aggressive tone, but Hobson, he definitely doesn't have this voice where it's like, oh my God, I'm just scared of him, you know, like maybe a Kevin Gates or something, or a 21 Savage. But he does make you fear him lyrically when he writes stuff. So, you know, I'm not a rapper or anything like that, but I do love hip hop, and you know, I love the Spurs, so it's just a good little combination.
Hell yeah it is. Shoot, what's the word count? Because your songs are not mumble rap or just dropping a hook and just, you know, your lyrical counts down to like 20. It's none of that. It's you're jamming a lot, right? You're jamming a lot into your song, which is pretty dope. Do you know how many words there are in that song?
I do not.
Cause that's a skill.
Yeah,
that's a skill, man. Like I'm trying to keep up. I'm like, man, I can't even talk that fast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I like someone asked me that before. Cause so on the first one I made, cause you know that's part 2. So the part 1 that I made, there was certain parts where people said, I don't know what you're saying, and when you write it, it doesn't seem like it's that difficult to understand when you wrote it. But, you know, a lot of people were like, I don't know what you said. You went too fast. And it wasn't till this one where I said, okay, I'm going to take the time and put the lyrics at the bottom of the screen. Because obviously, you know, people weren't really getting what I was saying. And there's a lot of like punchlines in there that I just kind of throw in there casually, where I guess if I didn't have the lyrics down there, you probably wouldn't have caught it. So I just said, why not?
Yeah, but that's the beauty behind the style, you know? Like that's what you're going for. Yeah. I appreciate the lyrics. I appreciate the lyrics too, because I went back, I heard it, and I caught some things, and then I went back and heard it again, and I kind of like read the lyrics and maybe even paused it a little bit and like took those punchlines a little bit more. And yeah, dude, it was dope. I'm glad. I'm glad you did that for sure.
I appreciate it. I didn't even know you heard it like that. I thought maybe you heard it once and that was about it.
I heard it a few times, man. A few times. I gave you a couple views on that one.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so you're Spurs Nation out there. Go to Clan the Spurs Fan on YouTube, and you can catch his Camelot Part 2 Spurs song, and catch his Part 1. It's out there as well. Okay, so let's talk Spurs. Let's talk Spurs. I think we're 5 games in now. We're standing at 4-1. Technically, we are the 2nd seed in the West, and the Lakers are standing at 4-1 as well, and they're sitting on top. Although we should mention that the 3rd and 4th spot are Utah and the Clippers, who also have 4 wins, but they have 2 losses, right? So just because of the games that they've played, they're sitting below us. So the top 4 teams right now in the Western Conference are the Lakers, Spurs, Utah, and the Clippers. And we'll get into kind of the West in a second. But what are your thoughts coming out from our first game against New York and all the way up to maybe against Golden State, who we just played last night and took care of? And we can talk about Golden State a little later. But what are your first initial takes from how we're playing this year, lineups, players?
Okay.
Who stands out?
Okay. All right. So as far as how our team is set up, I'll just be completely honest and transparent. I'm a little worried, but I'm not worried to the standpoint of we don't have enough talent. I'm kind of worried with how we are doing our transitions, or how we're doing, not transitions, but how we're playing certain players and changing roles. And I mean, I'm not the one to sit here and criticize the greatest coach of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you know, if I'm just going to be completely subjective, I just think that what we need is for other players to change their roles instead of everyone changing their roles. Like, okay, so what I mean by that is this year, or this last game, when we went against Golden State, it seemed as if everyone was extremely comfortable and we took care of them the way that we should have took care of other teams this season.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We came in, Patty Mills did his thing, Derek White did his thing. You know, DeMar DeRozan, you know, he became, you know, a little bit of a distributor.
Yeah.
The ball was moving more. DeMari Carroll was able to go in there and show what he's about. And it seems like we really wore them down as the game went on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we are at our best. This is my opinion. We are at our best when Derek White and DeRozan are the ball handlers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that because this is the game that DJ wasn't playing, I think DJ should start with White. I think they should start combo, duo, and I think the offense overall is going to be ran a little bit better under a pop system.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's too many times where, you know, coast to coast is great, and that's what DJ's really good at, getting the rebound, going straight down there and speeding it up. But under a Pop offense, it seems like Pop is never 100% comfortable with it, and he always kind of goes backwards. So he'll do that, like, okay, you know, it's fine. He's not having a problem with it. And then as soon as we start making a few mistakes, it's all half court.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that maybe we should, after last year, we had pretty decent success with what we had. I think that we should just build off of last year instead of trying to change the whole system as far as trying to speed up the game. I don't know.
And I think you're talking about
what I took from.
I think you're talking about DJ and Bryn, right? Starting DJ and Bryn versus having Derek White in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
I think that when we went up against the Warriors, that's a good game to kind of compare, right? Our fifth game, this last game, versus our first four games with DeJounte and Bryn in the starting lineup. This game against the Warriors, of course, they're not at full strength, but at the same time, Derek White was in the game. Derek White got to do a lot of what he did before. Everyone was a little bit more familiar with Derek White on the floor. I agree with that. But here's my thing, because I'm not opposing you on this. I think that this starting lineup that we've rolled out has struggled. You're right. You're definitely right. I think that we start every game slow. Our first quarters suck. You know, the beginning of our first quarter, every time we start subbing in Derek White, Patty Mills, they have to, you know, come back from behind. I think out of all the different lineups that we see throughout a game, I would say that our starting unit is our most inefficient lineup. They don't get it done on the offensive end, and a lot of that is, I think, them trying to figure each other out. Like you said, okay, DeJounte provides this whole other element, right, to what we're trying to do. He can get it and go, right? And even when he's going, even in a half court, he can break down the defense and get to the rim. So we're learning that, right? And then also having Bryn on the floor, he's there to space the floor. And I think that these two guys look really good in the starting lineup together. But I think overall, it affects the rest of the squad. DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge struggle in the first quarter. And it's always those two guys that have to keep us competitive until the subs come in. So I'm a little worried about that too.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's a tough situation. But I don't know. I kind of felt like, and I felt like this. I actually felt like this before the season started. I felt like this before preseason when I saw what our team is going to be. And I think even though we're 4-1, I haven't felt like it's been a convincing 4-1 thus far. But one thing that I do think that the Spurs should look at doing, we're not a 3-point shooting team this year, in my opinion. I think Brent Forbes can shoot. Patty can shoot. You know, sometimes Patty's streaky, but he can shoot. Marco is very streaky. Brent is the most consistent 3-point shooter we have. And I think that 3-point shooting might be our weakness. I don't know if it really was last year. We didn't take a lot of threes, but I feel like it's definitely probably going to be our weakness right now. And if that's our weakness, I just think we should just go off of our strengths. And our strength is, look, you have DeJounte Murray, one of the best defending point guards in the league. You got Derek White, one of the best defending point guards in the league. You got DeMar Carroll, a really good perimeter defender. And then you have Jakob, who's a good rim protector. So I think that we should play off of our strengths. And I don't think there's one moment in the game, maybe a few, but I don't feel like there's one moment in the game where we couldn't have at least 2 defenders out there at a time. And I think that if we did that, I think that we would be seeing a much better Spurs team because we have the attitude. DeMar Carroll is a dog. He's a bulldog. You got DeJounte. He's the same way. He's going to bark. And Derek White is a really good defender. I just think if you do that, I feel like if we put in Derek White has been hitting pretty good threes lately also. And if you put him in there in the starting lineup, and I know it's not realistic right now because DJ is minutes restrictions, but if we can get to the point where we could do that, I think we have a really, really good team that's going to be really tough for anybody. And even if like you said, our starters are struggling offensively, even if they're struggling offensively, at least on the other end of the court, we don't have people shooting and scoring effortlessly just because we're undersized. Well, Brent Forbes is undersized. It's not his fault. He's a good defender, but you know what I mean? Like I just feel like we can oppose our will early. And I don't think we've been able to do that.
No, we definitely haven't. And I think you hit it right on the head. We're 4-1, but besides this Warrior game where that was the only one that we won convincingly, I think those first 4 games, the other 3 wins, and even the Clipper games, they've been close games. I mean, New York took us down to the final 3 minutes. Washington was a game where it came down to the last possession. And if we go back and look at that game on that final defensive possession, because we're on the defensive side, that was the only time that I think we've seen, like DeJounte and Derek out there, and they both made a play on the ball on the final drive to try to score. I forgot if it was to send us to overtime or what. Derek White was on the ball, and DeJounte, they were both there, right, to contest that shot, and it was like, oh, that's the type of defense that we know that we're going to have when we play these 2 guys together. But there's something to be said about what the plan is. Like, I feel like there's a plan here because, yes, you're right. DJ's on his minute restriction, which means that he's going to be off the court a lot, right, until that kind of goes away. So keeping Derek in this role for now might be our solution to that. Okay, so we're going to keep them apart because of DJ, right? And once DJ kind of gets off that minute restriction, maybe we can start messing around with some things. But I love Patty Mills said something after practice this past week about the bench and about how their role, and they all communicate about how when they enter the game, they're going to change the pace and they're there to change the game. And it shows. And they've been doing that really well. When Derek White he's been our first guy off the bench. And as soon as he gets in the game changes. Like shots start becoming easier to get. He starts doing his thing, breaking down off the pick and roll. And then here comes Patty, right? And then energy. I mean, we got more energy. And then you get the rest of the guys, Rudy, Jakob, right? They start coming into the fold, and Marco, and then the game changes, and then we get back in this game, and then the starters kind of feed off of that, and you start seeing a blend between the starting lineup and the bench players, right? Where you might have DeMar DeRozan in there with the bench guys or LaMarcus in there with the bench guys, and things start flowing a lot better. But that starting unit still needs to figure it out. And I feel like we have time, like we're early in this season. I think it's something that we should definitely look at, and I think that's what they're doing. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to evaluate what works, what doesn't, what's our best lineup, which lineups are not that great. And I think we have plenty of games to mess with our starting lineups. And just like last night against the Warriors, we put White back in the starting lineup. And that showed us he can do that. And he's still effective as a starter. And the starters are effective with this lineup. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. But we still got to be experimenting with things.
I don't know. I know it's always different when it comes to the Spurs, but do you believe in like just playing your best players, or do you believe in more so like going with the lineup or, the best possible lineup?
I think when you start games here in the NBA, you have to go with lineups, right? It's your two best players are DeMar and LaMarcus, and which lineup is going to give them the best opportunity to be effective early, especially when we go to these guys early, which we haven't really done that much. And I don't know if it's because they've been starting off slow or it's just DeJounte and Bryn setting the pace right from the get-go. But I think you definitely have to mess around with lineups. And I think when you start getting into big moments in a game or crucial possessions, you go with your players who are getting it done that night, right? Because sometimes DeMar might not be getting it done, and Marco or Rudy are having a great game, or Patty Mills is in the final few possessions of the game because he's been getting it done all game long. So throughout the game, it tells its own story, and you kind of have to adjust through your game, right? And it's a game-to-game basis. But starting versus bench players, I think you go with lineups, and that's where I'm kind of confused. Like, okay, I like what we're seeing from DeJounte and Bryn. They're getting out, they're running. Bryn Forbes is having one of the hottest starts, man, that you can have to a season, coming off a great preseason and still just coming out and knocking down shot after shot in the regular season. And DeJounte looks confident. He's attacking the rim. He's pushing the defense. He's always got the defense on their heels, and that dynamic, I think, is huge. And I think those two guys together once they figure it out and the rest of the starting lineup figures it out, how they're going to mesh, how they're going to play, who's going to be getting these shots early in the game, and we'll figure that. I think those two guys, DeJounte and Bryn, can actually be one of the better backcourts in the Western Conference, and I would like to see how DeJounte and Derek stack up against the rest of the Western Conference. But right now, I think we're still playing around. I wouldn't be surprised if throughout the season you have 5-game spurts and 10-game spurts of different starting pieces, right? Maybe Bryn doesn't start, maybe Trey Lyles doesn't start, right? Because we've been going small. That's another thing too. That's a big difference from last year when we had Pau Gasol in the beginning of the season. And really, even before that, we try to go 2 big basketball, right? We try to have 2 bigs out there, a lot of high-low action. And this year has been different, right? We're trying to go small. We have Trey Lyles at the 4. We have LaMarcus playing a lot of 5, right? So I think there's a lot of newness there. There's a lot of adjusting and a lot of figuring things out together that starting unit has to build on. And I think 5 games in, it hasn't hurt us, right? That they've been slow and they've been slopping. But I think the progress needs to keep moving forward with this starting lineup. Now, what do you think about Trey Lyles and this small ball, and how do you think he's been fitting in and into his role?
Okay, yeah. So with Trey Lyles, I think he can take more threes. I think sometimes it's really open, some really open shots where he kind of passed it up. But for the most part, I mean, I've liked him, enjoyed him in the starting lineup. I guess the only concern I have as far as Trey Lyles is concerned is I feel like his greatest asset is going to be scoring, stretching the floor, scoring, and because he's kind of he could be a 3, a 4, or a 5, but he has the scoring ability, I think, to hit outside shots. And I would hate for it to become one of those things where his role is to get rebounds, which is great, but his only role is to get rebounds because that's the only thing he can do or he's willing to do at the moment. Because I feel like the same thing with LaMarcus Aldridge. Of course, he's a big man. He's supposed to get rebounds. But I don't want to see a lot of games from LaMarcus Aldridge where, it's 10 rebounds and 5 points, because what's going to make him the most effective is scoring. He's going to have to score and open things up for everybody. And I feel like with Trey Lyles right now, we're not getting a lot of that outside shot that I was hoping for. But he's fitting in the offense. He's passing the ball. Obviously, Pop is keeping him in there, so he's liking how he's playing.
Yeah.
But there's a few occasions where I said, I'm looking at the screen like, man, let that thing rip. You're wide open in the corner, let it rip. And, sure enough, he'll pump fake, drive, pass it out. Which, I mean, it's nothing wrong with it, but, it is what it is. I don't have a problem with them, but, I do hope it doesn't become one of those, this is your role, but he's not elite at that. That's maybe the third thing he can do well, and it's becoming his primary thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what's going to get him minutes right now, and obviously that's what's been able to put him in the starting lineup in the beginning of the season, which isn't easy to do for a new player, a new Spurs player. But I see what you're saying, because when he's in there with the starting lineup, he definitely does not ever really look to get his own shot. He doesn't look for it. He's going in there to be a facilitator. And I think that's what that lineup needs, And I think when he's out there with different players, he should take advantage more of opportunities. But I feel like every team needs a guy who's looking to get someone else open, to feed your best players. And at the same time, he's got to keep the defense honest, right? And
exactly
still be a threat. But I like what he's doing. I like, I've been comparing him to Boris Diaw. I've been getting a lot of slack from YouTube people out there. Stop comparing him to Boris Diaw. He's not Boris. I'm like, I know he's not Boris Diaw. Like, Boris Diaw was one of the smartest players, headiest players, great passer, great also. But Trae Young can do all those things. He just doesn't do them like Boris Diaw did 2 or 3 years. And we got him as later in his career. He's just so smart already. The chemistry with Tony P, it was just a better fit for Diaw, where he can transition faster. And I think Trey Lyles can do some of that stuff. And you need that guy who's able to score, like Boris was able to score. Whenever he get those high-low passes or whatever, he would finish. But he was the guy that I was always looking to make everyone else better. And I feel like that's Trey Lyles' job in the starting lineup.
Yeah. Yeah. Trey Lyles is definitely he's definitely a good passer. I guess the biggest difference between him and Boris, I mean, you hit it, on the nail on the head, but I feel like some things with the difference between him and Boris might be the shooting too. Because I know Boris, like you said, you got to keep him honest. He will always keep you honest. Like, he's going to knock down some threes on you if you leave him open. So I think Trey Lyles is getting those same looks, and he's not really making you pay on them, which is fine. But there's been a few times where I did see, he passed up a shot, and then it eventually led to us not hitting anything. And I was like,
So if Trey Lyles isn't in the starting lineup, you have Rudy Gay or Damari Carroll, who can come in and play that position for a small ball lineup. Who do you play if it's not Trey?
And I got to choose one?
Yeah. Or who do you think would fit just as good, or if not better, into that starting lineup at that position?
Oh, at the starting lineup. I guess it depends. Like I said, that I will always kind of want at least 2 defenders out there at a time, because we got so many duos in the NBA. So to me, it would just depend whether or not Brent Forbes is on the bench or not. If Brent Forbes if it is how it is right now, Brent Forbes starting, I think Carroll. I like Carroll there, but Carroll isn't.
He played.
Carroll hasn't been shooting threes.
No, he barely played. Last night was the first time that he checked into the game.
Yeah.
And I think in Brooklyn, he played a lot of power forward in the small ball lineup, so it's not anything new to him. And I think that might be something that we play around with. Again, it's a long season. I doubt that we're gonna have this starting lineup at the end of the season, or even if we do, it's a different version. They'll evolve, through the struggles and everything like that. But before we talk a little bit more, we're gonna take a little break.
Welcome to the Podell and Piquel Show. I'm your host, Garrett Podell. Alongside me is my co-host, Jonathan Piquel. We're here to give you the real deal in sports, and we have the best guests in the world of sports. We've had NFL Hall of Fame finalists, multiple Olympians, pro athletes across the NFL, MLB, and NBA, as well as golf. Tune in to see who could be stopping by this week.
All right, we're back. We're back with Clan, the Spurs fan on YouTube, Spurs Wave on Instagram. If you're not following them on Instagram, you're missing out on the best Spurs fan page on Instagram there is. Destin, Clan.
Yes.
Let's talk about Lonnie Walker. There's a lot of takes. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts on Lonnie. A lot of people are hungry to see him play. And I think against the Clippers, we saw a little something that might give us a little intel on how Pop approaches Lonnie. But you did something you've done before. You've created a petition to let Lonnie play. And when I say that you've done it before, my listeners, if you were unaware, Clan started a petition to get Davis into the three-point contest last All-Star break. And at that point, I think he was leading the league in three-point percentage, and he heard about it. Davis heard about that, so that was pretty cool. Now,
it was.
Our petition for Lonnie. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I made a petition for Lonnie to get playing time, which I think a lot of people took it like literal. And I was like, just shut up and sign it. It's a joke. I mean, it was the same thing with Bertans. It's just supposed to be a joke to have fun and, just for, Spurs fans to kind of engage with that. But deep inside, I really did. Now, honestly, with the Bertans thing, I'll just be honest. I didn't care as much if he made the three-point contest. If I'm being honest, I don't even like All-Star Weekend. I was like, you know what? It'll just make them tougher. Who cares? It's stupid.
Yeah. It'd be cool to have a Spurs player in there somewhere, right?
Y'all say that again? I'm sorry.
It would be cool to have a Spurs player in All-Star Weekend, All-Star Saturday night, for sure.
Yeah, it would. It would, but they do us wrong all the time, so I wasn't really shocked by any of that. But with the Lonnie Walker thing, even though it was a joke, I actually really did want to see him get way more playing time, and
we all do.
Yeah, and it seems like you mentioned against the Clippers, it seems like Pop is really, really hard on Lonnie, like really hard, and it's tough for me to criticize that at all, because we've seen how Pop operates, and we've seen how he treats players that he doesn't feel like is given the utmost effort. And when it comes to Lonnie Walker, I just don't know how he will react to it. Maybe Pop knows, but it's hard for me to know how he will react and respond to that, because a lot of times we compare Lonnie Walker to Manu, which I know is kind of unfair, but there's similarities in there somehow. Like every time I see Lonnie Walker play, he shows you something, especially in summer league that I saw. It's always something where it's like, wow, I've never seen that before. And that was the same thing with Manu. And I feel like with Lonnie, he brings a certain amount of energy to the bench, coming off the bench, that, we can't get anywhere else. And his athleticism, he can score easier than anyone else on the team. Like he can get his shot off easier than anyone else on the team. But the thing is, the biggest difference is when Manu Ginobili came in and he was young, he would do his Manu Ginobili stuff. Like, it didn't matter really what Pop said. He's going to try to be in the system and do his thing. But at the same time, he's going to do something crazy. He's going to be Manu, and he's going to go in there and he's going to risk it all. And he cares what Pop says, but he doesn't care to the point that he's not going to jeopardize himself for it. And I think with Lonnie Walker, thus far that we've seen, because he played – when did he play? Help me out. Did he play against the Wizards?
He played against the Clippers. I think that was the first time, unless he got – did he get in the game before? Who did they play? They played the Knicks. They played the Wizards. Oh, they played Portland. I don't think he played against Portland.
I think it was the Wizards then.
Mm-hmm.
And against the Wizards, he came in. It was only about 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So he came in, and he had a wide open shot at 3.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not take it. He passed it up, and it was, wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to just pull that up. And Pop instantly, looked at Lonnie, and he said, take the shot. If you got it, take the shot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next play, Lonnie Walker got the ball. He drove, and I think he got a floater.
Mm-hmm.
And just effortlessly got the shot off. And I thought that maybe after that we would see Lonnie Walker going in there and just being completely comfortable, but it also showed that he's uncomfortable. And it seems like he wants to be Lonnie, but he hasn't really figured out how to do that within the system yet. And it seems like Pop really got onto him about effort, so I don't know what's going on as far as Lonnie Walker and his effort level.
Yeah.
I know he's extremely confident. Some people have told me, I feel like he's kind of cocky. I don't think he's cocky. He's really confident, and maybe he's just a little too confident.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And it seems like Pop, I don't know.
His confidence reminds me a lot of DeJounte's confidence, where it's like, shoot, I am who I am. I know what I can do and this and that. But DeJounte is still humble and knows that there's still a lot to go, still a lot to learn, that he's going to be chewed out by Pop. And when you compare him to Manu and the style of play and how Pop relates to that, and with Manu and Pop, it was a give and take, right? Like, he had to take some of the erratic style of play and gambles and things that Manu was going to do that might hurt you, but you lived with it because Manu gave you so much on the other end, right? And that's a relationship that, it took a long time to build that relationship. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in his rookie year. I think maybe by the first few years into Manu's career, Pop was like, okay, Manu's going to be Manu, And I think with Lonnie, we're all kind of wondering, I know in the beginning, like, why isn't he playing? Well, they must know that he still needs work, or they're maybe testing him. I feel like this is just, I kind of feel like the Spurs are working some guru shit on Lonnie right now. Like, you know what, Lonnie, you're not going to play. You better get hungry. Like, you better get real hungry, because he's not going to, like, he didn't play the first three games. So that should have built. I mean, how do you take that as a player? Are you thinking, shit, like, man, I didn't play, or all right, well, I'm just gonna wait for my opportunity, or how does it affect him? I don't know, because when he went in against the Clippers, finally got some good minutes, it didn't look like he was ready for him. To be honest, I think that sure, like it looks like he's playing hard, but it's the little things, right? It's the little things that Pop got on him for it, and like he said, it was all effort. It had nothing to do with what he can do offensively. It's, he expects a certain level of effort and awareness. I think that was something I heard Pop say that really hit me on the head. It's like he's expecting Lonnie to be a better defender. You know what I mean? Like, just be smarter, be able to recover off of getting beat, and just being smart on the defensive end. And I feel like we're working some guru stuff on him, where it's like, you know what, you're not going to play. You messed up. Like, he rarely played after that. He played a little bit, I think, later in the game. But if he wants to earn those minutes, and they're going to make him earn it. And I think that's a good thing. I think that if he earns it, he's gonna take a little bit more pride in it. You know what I mean? In his minutes. And like he's like, when he starts getting minutes, it's gonna be like, okay, I earned these. They weren't given to me. I fixed some things that I was doing wrong and that coach is hard on me and I fixed those things. Now these are my minutes. And I hope that once that shift happens at some point in this season, that he's ready for it. He's ready to grab it and not let it go. And the way he came out and played against the Clippers doesn't show me that. To me, that showed me that he still needs work. He still needs a lot of coaching. He still needs a lot of mental practice. Because let's face it, we're treating him right now like a rookie. In his second year, we're treating him like a rookie. That maybe they get some minutes here and there, maybe they don't. They gotta show it. They gotta earn it. They're not gonna take any minutes away from any of these veterans, which a lot of people are mad that Marco's getting all these minutes, and everyone throws a lot of shade at Marco. And I get it. Like, I want to see Lonnie play too. I want to see Lonnie play. And whose minutes is he gonna take? Probably Marco's. I think that's who he's fighting for, and how we're playing right now. And at this point of the season, we're playing like 10 guys, maybe 11 guys, and we're deep. We went those first 3 games without playing Lonnie or DeMarre Carroll. You know what I'm saying? So it's just and we're still winning those games. So we're competitive. And with those 2 guys, and Lonnie more than anyone else because he's so young. With DeMarre, he's cool. He's like, I'm chilling. I'm going to do my thing. When my opportunity comes, I'm a veteran. I've been there. I've done that. Lonnie needs to kind of go through the growth curve, the maturity curve. Like DJ was able to watch all last year, like from the bench. Lonnie was rarely there. He was in Austin, working on his game in Austin. So now that he's here, it's like, okay, maybe they're going to bring him on slowly. Okay, look, y'all need to watch. Like those 2 guys, y'all need to watch. This, like Marco's been here, Patty, Rudy, everyone here has been here. They know how we operate. Watch. For a few games, for the first 3 games, look at them, see what they're doing. What can you do better? Or what would you do differently? Right? Things like that. Or look how they do these rotations, and how aware they are, how they communicate, all these things. And I feel like they're embracing it now. We're 5 games in against the Warriors. We finally got to see DeMarre Carroll come into the fold. And we're getting to see a little bit of sprinkle of Lonnie now. And I feel like it's up to him to and I'm very confident that he will do this. I think it's up to him to embrace the fact that, and he said it in his in training camp. He was like, I don't expect nothing. I don't expect minutes. I have to earn my minutes. And so he's aware of it, but going through it, it's hard for us because we want to see it. Because like you said, we know how good he is. We know how good he is on the offensive end. Like that guy does things that no one else can do, like you said. And I've said that he has all-star potential in him, and he does. But with the Spurs system and how deep we are, because we are super freaking deep. I think heading into this season right now, after these first 5 games, I'd say we're the deepest team in the West. Maybe Denver, maybe Utah. Maybe Denver, maybe Utah are just as deep as we are. But like a lot of these teams aren't, man. They fall off. And so if Lonnie wants to crack that top 10 rotation, he's going to have to earn it. And it's going to take time. I have all the confidence that he will. I just think that as a fan, as someone who watches from the outside, we don't see what happens on the day-to-day. And whenever he gets his opportunities, he has to prove it. And, especially against, like, the Clippers, like, that was a big opportunity for him because he got minutes in the second quarter, right? He got minutes there, not at the last 2-3 minutes of the game. He got valuable minutes. And he didn't show Pop what Pop wanted to see. And so Pop's going to hold him accountable for that. And it's a process. I'm sure they talked about it after and all that stuff. Like, yeah, he was hard on DeJounte the other game. Like when DeJounte tried to do like an around the back move and turn it over, like Pop ripped him, sat him down for like 2-3 plays and then put him back in. And that's just Pop. And he does that to your best player. He's going to do that to your worst player. And Lonnie's got to grow. And I think that's going to be the story of this season, where I think heading into the season, most of us just thought Lonnie was going to come in here and just take the Spurs by storm off the bench. And that's not the case. It's going to be a process. And I think we all just kind of have to relax a little bit, take our foot off the pedal, and just embrace the greatness of development that we're about to see with this guy.
You mentioned the depth, and the amount of depth that we have is basically what's going to drive it home. I think that Lonnie Walker, by the end of this season, I feel like he's going to be an X factor, because I think part of the reason, just my gut feeling why Pop gets on him so much, is because I think I feel like Pop knows that Lonnie Walker could be the best player on this team in the next few years. Like, I think as much, I love Derek White, and as good as DeJounte is, I don't think either one of their ceilings are on Lonnie's level. I think Lonnie could be a super good defender. I think that he could be an offensive threat. I see Lonnie Walker as becoming something that's really, really special. So I think that he's getting onto him really hard about that. But I was gonna ask you something, because people have brought this up before, and I feel like it's fair to mention it, but I wanted to know your thoughts on it. So when Pop talked about Lonnie and got on to Lonnie after the game, post game, and he talked about his effort, talking about he didn't compete. Now, a lot of people have felt like Pop was kind of being hypocritical at that moment, because that same game, LaMarcus Aldridge didn't seem like he put up the best effort. And then he had about, I think, 5 points in a big game like that. So what do you think about that, as far as Pop not going at certain players like LA? Definitely not DeMar. I don't think he went at DeMar, but he doesn't really talk like that about vets. Or if Marco makes some mistakes, it's you never really get that. So what do you think about that?
It's got to be, you got to know your personnel, right? I think that who can take it, who can't take it, and at the end of the day, I don't think Pop's going to play the favorite card, but Lonnie's in a different situation than LaMarcus. We're riding LaMarcus's back. We are riding him to the ground. We are going to go to him on both ends. We need him to be an elite offensive player. And I think he's been doing pretty well on the defensive end this year. I think I've seen him change a lot of shots, a lot of great help side defense. He's protecting the paint pretty well. But I think we ask a lot of LaMarcus Aldridge on both ends of the floor. So I feel like the situation's a little bit different. Do you still get on him? Yeah. But do you rip him the way you rip Lonnie? It's like, no, Lonnie's in a different situation. Lonnie is still trying to prove something. He's still trying to earn something. And these guys like LaMarcus, someone like LaMarcus or Rudy, or Patty, these guys that have been around for a while, they know the expectation, and if they're not going to meet it, they're just probably not going to play. I don't think you have to really get into these vets the same way, like mind fuck them the same way as you do maybe these young guys. You got to keep the fire under these young guys. I think it's just a different situation. But I think I've liked what I've seen out of LaMarcus. I don't know if Pop is gotten on him too much. I haven't really kept my eye on that. I've seen him get on some of these young guys like Trey Lyles, Jakob, Derek, DeJounte. I've seen him get all over Bryn, especially Lonnie. Right when Lonnie got his opportunity, he didn't hesitate to do that. So a lot of these vets, I feel like he's trusting them. He's putting the trust in them. And I think LaMarcus, we're asking a lot for both sides. I think he's doing all right there.
I guess that makes sense, because if you take like a kid and you take somebody who has a child that's grown, I mean, it's certain stuff that you probably would have got onto them when they were younger, and they get older. You kind of like, you're an adult now. You're a seasoned vet. I guess I understand that. I don't think that, like a lot of people have said, he's been hypocritical. Like you said, I don't really think it's been really hypocritical. I think it just depends on who he's talking about. Or, I'll say this though. I don't know, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I've seen every single post game interview, but I don't recall a time where Pop singled out a player in a post-game interview. I don't know why. Maybe I could be wrong. Most of the time where I seen Pop dig into the team post-game, it was about everybody.
Yeah.
Like, no effort.
Well, it depends
They
on the
didn't show any
question,
effort.
right? I mean, if the reporter's asking him like, "Hey, what went wrong with your team or whatever in the third quarter," he would be like, "Well, the effort wasn't there. No one was playing hard. No one gave a crap." But I think they asked him particularly about Lonnie, and he wasn't shy.
Yeah.
I remember earlier on in the season or in the preseason, they asked him about the rookies. Is there any rookies that have stood out or this and that? He was just like, "No, not at all." Like, it's just like, okay.
Dang.
I was like, all right, cool. It's like, we want the rookies, but he's not going to give us what we want. Like he sees something totally different than what I see. And that's just what I think. I don't know. I could be wrong, but it's just different. You got different players, different personnel.
I think it's a mental thing too with Lonnie. I definitely think it's a mental thing. Because Lonnie Walker, I'll say one thing about Lonnie Walker that, if I have any dislikes, I basically love the entire team. My thoughts on LA at times. But for the most part, when it comes to Lonnie Walker, I think he's a great guy. It seems like he's a great guy on and off the court. It seems like he takes that extra mile, and he seems like maturity-wise, he's a little beyond his years.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like he's out trying to do anything crazy or anything like that. He seems pretty low-key. But I'll say the one thing that always made me a little weary of Lonnie, just a little bit, was how he talked about basketball sometimes, or about his role or whatever. Because I know last year, as a rookie, they talked to him after the game. He's going to get a lot of attention, it seems like. I mean, out of everybody on this team, if he plays, he's going to get the most attention as far as media, because he's going to be the most exciting Spur to watch. But they talked to him after a game last year, and the way he was talking was almost like he was a veteran. Like, he was talking, you know what I mean? Like, he was like
against New Orleans. Was it against New Orleans? There was like,
okay, it might have been.
Did he do a post game with like Bill Land and Sean Elliott?
Yeah, right. It was. Yep. And they talked to him, and the way he was talking, I wasn't going to sit here and make a big deal out of it or make a post on it or something like that, tweet it or anything. But I did think in the back of my mind, like, man, you're talking a little, you're talking like you played so many games already. And it was like one of his first games being out there, really. And he's like, well, whatever Pop needs me to do, I'm going to go out there and do it to the best of my ability. I'm going to do this. This is how I was raised. I'm going to be the, and it was like, I don't know. It just seemed a little premature to me.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point, because I think you're exactly right. When it comes to Lonnie Walker, the thing that we don't really see from the outside is that I think that he has totally 100% embraced the culture. You know what I mean? I think he's embraced it mentally, physically. He trusts the process. He was totally cool with going down to Austin. He knows the system. And I think that the whole bigger life is bigger than basketball mentality that Coach Popovich preaches and a lot of these Spurs players embrace, like Patty Mills and all these vets, that all do things outside of basketball. DeJounte Murray, when they asked him about his contract and what he's going to do, he's like, oh, I'm going to help. He's like, I'm gonna help people in the ghetto or whatever. I'm gonna help these crappy neighborhoods. He's like, I'm gonna give back. He's like, I came from a bad background. He's like, I want to make things better. Like that's San Antonio philosophy, right? That's San Antonio culture. Patty Mills creating a clean water project for the Aborigines in Australia, right? Things like that. And I think Lonnie is that guy. Like, I think he's that guy. So I think for us, we have to maybe think, okay, Lonnie is cool. Lonnie's a Spur. Like, he's a Spur. And I'm sure you saw his Spur Stories video this offseason and how he was so into giving back to his community, and he wants everyone to know that how important education is and all this stuff. So he seems like that guy, and when he speaks to the media, you definitely see that. You definitely see that his mind, and he's so mature, more beyond his years. So now it's just about bridging the gap between on court and what happens on the court and what happens off the court, because I think we extended him, right, for another year or another 2 years. And so
Right, yeah.
So he's going to be around. This isn't a make or break season for him. It's all about development and earning the opportunity. That way, when he gets it, he can have more stake in it. I think we're in good hands. I think he's in good hands, and he knows it. So he trusts the Spurs. So should we. You know.
I think it's one. I honestly do believe. You know, Pop can say it or not. I honestly do believe Pop believes he can be the greatest or the best player on the team. Mm-hmm. I feel like he see his potential and he sees how good he is, because Pop's not going to waste his time with a player that's, you know, going to be kind of average and getting onto them. I mean, he's not going to waste his time.
We don't draft those guys. We don't bring those guys in.
Yeah, they don't draft those type of guys. Yeah, either. So I mean, they as an organization, they're not going to waste their time. So I think that he sees how good Lonnie Walker is. And it might be one of those things where, like I said, Lonnie Walker talks great, and off the court he does his thing. And I guess Pop is just saying, you know, you talk it, you know, you got to walk it. Mm-hmm. So I give you 2 minutes. I want to see you balling out for 2 minutes straight. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, I guess the one thing, I guess I just talked myself into being a little more optimistic about this, because now I think about it, he got on to Lonnie Walker for effort. Mm-hmm. And I'm just happy that it wasn't something else. Mm-hmm. I'm happy that it wasn't Lonnie Walker took a shot and Pop didn't want him to take that shot. Now, he done that with Manu plenty of times. But I'm glad that it's not a matter of Pop saying, you know, be something else or be something different. Mm-hmm. It seems like he still wants you to go out there, do what you do best. Yeah. But I want to see effort on the defensive end. And honestly, that probably is Lonnie Walker's biggest weakness that I've noticed before this season. Yeah. I have noticed that sometimes he walks around, he doesn't help.
Right. You see that too?
Yeah. Oh, you seen it too?
Oh man, dude. I did a video the other day on Lonnie, and I was like, look, he's not the perfect player. He's not like ready to go right now. He's not. He has all the tools. Yeah. And one of the things I talked about, besides his defensive you know, things that he needs to work on, was he seems to just watch the game. Like, I don't know, like it can be on either side of the ball. He watches, like, and he's always the last player to like transition. If we're going from offense to defense, he's the last one to get down there on the defense. If we're going from defense to offense, he's the last one to get down there. And I'm just thinking, okay, is that just a mental thing? Does he have to pick up the pace of how this game moves, or is he just so athletic where he can do that? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't hurt him. It doesn't hurt us. You know what I mean? Because he's there. He gets there. And I think it's just an athletic thing. He's just trying to survey what's going on.
That's what it is. That's what it is. It's not. I don't think it's necessary that he's lazy or something like that. It's because I've watched some highlights of him back in when he was in college with Miami, and I watched some of those clips or whatever, and he did the same thing in college. And I think Pop is trying to take that out of him. He's probably been doing that his whole life because he's so damn athletic. Yeah. But he becomes more of an opportunist than a what's the word, like I don't know. It's like he becomes more of an opportunist than being fundamental on defense, because I've seen it. He'll kind of walk around and wander, and you know, once it gets to him, okay, now he's there, and it's like no, you got to do that 24/7. And I think that it's a habit at this point. I don't think it's him being lazy. I think it's just his way of reserving energy, which is now, this is what's crazy. We see a lot of players in the NBA that are extremely talented that do that same thing that Lonnie Walker is doing right now. So and as Spurs fans, it's standing out to us because Spurs players don't do that. Yeah. So you're looking at even Patty Mills, who's, you know, not – he's a good defender, but he puts the utmost effort on both ends. Now, so you look at Lonnie Walker, he just kind of stands out because, you know, it's in him. And you see players like James Harden, who's done it. One player that's notorious, and no one ever talks about it, but Russell Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
He is notorious for that. I think Russell Westbrook, if he don't have the ball in his hands, he's just there. Yeah. He's not doing much. He's not good off ball. He's just kind of there.
Well, he's in the perfect
system. And Lonnie Walker. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Well, he's in the perfect system for that now, because that's all he's got to do.
Pretty much now.
Just watch.
Yeah, I was thinking more so OKC. It was like, yeah, you're just kind of there right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he does the same thing on defense. And I think it's because he's just so athletic. But yeah, Lonnie Walker is going to have to be engaged. He's going to have to be fundamental with his defense, and he got to be 100% engaged. And I think that's what Pop is seeing. But at the same time, it's a habit, and you got to kind of kick that out of him. Yeah. And it might take a while, because like I said, when you go back and look at old clips from him, he was a good defender.
Mm-hmm. That's
the crazy thing. Even though he's not engaged, he's engaged, but he's just so doggone athletic till, it was one game. It was a big game in college, and I think he had the game-winning block.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he can get there.
It's just different. It's just different. Like, regular defense and Spurs defense, it's like two different planets. You know what I mean? We do things so more strict over here, where if you're not doing your job rotation wise, then you're in trouble. And a lot of teams now in the NBA just kind of play this one-on-one defense, not a lot of help, not a lot of rotations, but that's not how we do things. And Lonnie's got to figure it out, and he will. It takes reps, right? It takes in-game reps to figure that out. And I think that we're just going to give those to him slowly so he can relish them a little bit more, so he can maybe take each possession a little bit more with a little bit more, I don't know, just energy, effort, focus, whatever it is. Because I'm not saying he's not. It's hard to say that, he's not putting in energy or he's not focused. No, he is, but just not into the level that Pop expects, because he expects more out of him.
Like I said, it's a habit. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's so athletic, and he's been probably. I'm just gonna make a wild assumption that he has been doing that his whole life, where he's kind of, just kind of there, wandering around. Because most people play defense that way, especially off ball when it's not in your ball handler's hands. Sometimes you wander, and he's just one of those players. And now one thing that he is bad at, which is going to have to change, his help is really bad. Like when there's a player and, you kind of cut in and swipe at the ball, I mean, he makes the motion like he's swiping, but he's not really making any type of impact on the play other than being out of position once his guy gets the ball. Yeah. So I've been seeing that a lot. But, he's going to be fine. I feel like we're getting on to Lonnie quite a bit, but it's because he's just so doggone good.
Yeah.
He's going to be, to me, he got to prove it, of course. I can say he's going to do this, you're going to do this, but you still got to prove it. It's not like a movie where at the end it's always a happy ending. So he's going to have to prove it. But if he reaches his potential, I really do believe he will surpass DeJounte and Derek White in the next big three. I think he'll be better than both.
Yeah. I think we talked about that a few years ago, where I was like, I was like, dude, I think Lonnie in a few years, especially if DeRozan is not here, those are Lonnie's buckets. Those are Lonnie's buckets.
Yeah, I hope that he can get his minutes. I hope that he can earn them this season, because honestly, I really do believe. And one thing that you said that kind of stands out to me, you said that the only way he'll learn is through reps. So I mean, do you agree with? Pop does it all the time, but do you agree with like yanking him, like in the Clippers game, or would you have thrown him, like you personally, would you have thrown him back in to the fire shortly after, to see how he responded to that, or would you just say, no, screw it all, sit down? Because we lost that game, and lost that game a big sum because Kawhi kept hitting shots on Marco Bellinelli, and
Yeah.
it was pretty bad.
Well, let me tell you what I thought happened in that game. I think it wasn't just his defensive error or he got beat off the dribble and didn't make a play, whatever it was that happened on the defensive end. I think there was a few plays before where he put a screen on Pat Beverly and pushed off, and it kind of looked a little dirty. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw him do that.
Okay, so I think when he ripped Lonnie, I saw him pointing to that end of the floor. Like, he was, like, pointing over there like that. So I think he was calling him out on that shit. Like saying, first you go down over there, you lay out that screen, dirty screen, whatever like that, because that's not what we do. We don't play like that, right? So it's just like, I think maybe that was a little bit of frustration from Lonnie. Maybe, like, I don't know. That's why I don't think he handled those minutes all that well. I think he was.
I got you.
I don't think he was mentally prepared on either end of the floor. I think when he extended that chicken wing, he's lucky he didn't get a call. We ended up getting a bucket, but Pat Bev was looking at the ref like, hey, man, like, you didn't see that? Like, he just straight up extended and threw me off. And then he comes back down on the other end and then gives up, a bucket. So I think it was a little bit of Pop saying, you know what, he's not ready right now. He's not ready to play. He's playing, so I think it was a combination of things. And I think because of that push off, and if that's something that goes against our culture, something that goes against the way we play, blah, 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 well, then you sit his tail down and you make him think about it for a long while. If it's one of those things. If it was just the defensive thing, you rip him, you get on him, you sit him down, you put him back in the game to correct it. But I think when it's more of like a discipline thing, I don't know, I could be totally wrong, but I saw him point to the end of the floor. No. And I know if it was one of my players who got chippy like that, I would pull him out, chew his ass out, and tell him to sit down. And then I have to go talk to the refs. Like, I got him. I talked to him. You know what I mean? That way it doesn't come back and hurt the team.
You know what? That actually was when he pulled him out. You're right on that. I don't know if it's necessarily the culture thing. I think it's more so he saw Lonnie Walker finally getting his minutes and kind of had a hissy fit about it.
Yeah.
Kinda. It was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what it was, because the reason why I'm not going to go as far as like saying, he got onto him just for that, or not. You didn't say just for that, but like got onto him because of that, or that, it tipped it over as far as this is the culture. We don't do that because, man, even though, I mean, we can say as fans that, Spurs don't do that, but we've done it a few times before, and we've done it as when did we do it last year? Mm-hmm. We did it in the playoffs. We got a little chippy. Mm-hmm. Jakob, he give you some dirty screens here and there.
Oh yeah.
So and I didn't see him get on to Jakob for that. I didn't see him, say, Jakob, we don't do that. No, he probably kind of liked it.
Yeah. Well,
so I think if
you're talking about that screen they laid on Murray in transition, I mean, technically that was a legal screen. That was a legal screen. It was just one of those screens you never see. And Murray ran into a brick wall, right, and got mad at him for that. Yeah. And I don't think that's necessarily a dirty play. It's just like one of those plays that you just don't do. You know what I mean?
Oh, he stuck. But he stuck out his knee just a little bit. And there was another play.
But that's his role. That's his role. He's got to enforce.
Yeah, he got to enforce. And I think, look, I don't think Pop would get on to Lonnie if it was one of those things that was consistent. I don't remember him ever getting on to Bruce Bowen about some of the stuff Bruce did. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember him getting on to Robert Horry about stuff that Robert Horry was doing. Mm-hmm. It's just, you got to be kind of consistent with the effort. You got to be consistent with who you are. And I don't think Lonnie, with that play, with pushing off of Beverly, we kind of know how Beverly is. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it was necessarily just, it wasn't a clean play. I think it just came out of frustration from Lonnie, and that's where Pop got irritated. He felt as if maybe Lonnie put himself ahead of the team, or kind of.
Well, we've seen this out of Lonnie a little bit. I think in the summer league, like when he play, if you go back and look at that game against Orlando, where he kind of him and another player from Orlando were kind of just going at each other. Lonnie's like clapping in his face, saying let's go, let's go. He has a little bit of that in him, and I feel like there's a time and a place where it's okay, but I think where he did it to Pat Beverly and then directly leading to like him getting off the beat, getting beat off the dribble a few times, and that to me as a coach, Pop, is just like, you're not ready to play. Your mind is not focused on your job and what you should be doing, and you're thinking about this, you're thinking about that, or you're trying to whatever, and it's hurting us, as a team, and blah blah blah, and sit your tail down. You know what I mean? And that's why I tweeted after that when he said because people were tweeting, like, oh man, like Pop ripped him. And Pop blah blah blah, and I was like, yeah, I'd be surprised if he played again. I honestly thought he was done for the night. Like, I'm gonna give you your minutes, and that's what you give me. Like, sit down. You know what I mean? Maybe
I think
next
he
time.
was. I thought he was done for the night after that.
I think he came back. This was in the first half, right? Because he played. He played in the second half, I think. I'm not sure how much he played, but he played a little bit in the second half. But yeah, so I think right now, I mean, I'm cool with Marco. A lot of people are throwing shade at Marco because he's the one that has those minutes. And Marco is Marco. He's not the best defender. He's going to take some silly shots, but a lot of them are going to go in. And to me, I'm cool with it, especially if this is like a long-term plan where it's like we're going to load up Marco early and then let Lonnie creep in here, throughout the seasons to develop him. And then maybe by post All-Star break, there's some type of split there, where he's earned some of Marco's minutes, not just given to him, but he's earned it on the floor. And I think we'll see it. And I'm okay with Marco right now. A lot of people are just giving him stuff, and I like what Marco's doing on the floor.
Yeah, and you mentioned Lonnie Walker getting kind of that, like, slap in his face, like, getting kind of pumped. If he got that in him, I like it. I guess it just kind of got to be tamed, because I don't think Pop doesn't, like, a lot of people see Pop as like this dictator. If you're not a Spurs fan, like, you automatically think Pop just controls everything, and that whole stupid argument, that's why Kawhi left, all that stupid stuff. But I mean, if you actually pay attention, if you're a Spurs fan, you see Pop is pretty player friendly.
Yeah. And
if that's part of what gets you going, he's gonna be all right with it. He can handle having a Patrick Beverly if he, if he came to Spurs or something. So I think it's just a matter of, like you said, do your job. All that extra stuff, when you get to that level, that's why I was saying earlier, it seems like sometimes Lonnie Walker is premature with his comments, because it's like, okay, you're talking like you're a veteran, and I understand that's part of your maturity level. That's how you think, of yourself, and that's all great and dandy, and you're doing everything right off the court. But when you're on the court, just put the utmost effort. Do everything that you're asked to do. Be yourself. But, that extra stuff is like, okay, that little push on Beverly, maybe Pop excuse that if you already earned your minutes and you've been killing the game.
Well, let me tell you,
you're chippy already.
Yeah, let me tell you when Pop's going to be okay with it. When it doesn't follow, when you getting blown by on defense follows that. It's like, okay, show your stuff, throw your swag, but then you come back down over here and you get burned on defense and you give up a bucket. So now what? That's why, like as a coach, as a player, even as a player, you got to be careful with that, because this is NBA. You want to show off and throw all this stuff, clap in people's face and whatever and blah, blah, blah. But then you come over here, you get dunked on, or you get beat back door, or something happens where you get burned. It's like, okay, well, now what? You're going to clap the next time too? You know what I mean? So to me, it's just like staying level-headed, and that's Tim Duncan, right? It's like, dude, never too high, never too low. Tim Duncan will put you on a poster or drop 35 on you, and you never even know. His demeanor stays the same.
Oh, perfect. And I know Lonnie Walker is nowhere near like this, as far as ego-wise or nothing like that. But, in the Spurs' eyes, you got to be a little more tame. And DeJounte Murray, he shows kind of a lot of attitude too. But
it's always at the end of a play or after an and one, or on the way, out of a timeout, he's there pumping his chest or doing something like that. It's never in a game, like where it's going to affect one side or the other. Yeah.
I was going to say the biggest. I was going to say the biggest example where you say, you got to be careful in the NBA. I think a great example of that would be, here I am bringing him up again, Russell Westbrook against Dame Lillard.
Oh, yeah.
That was a lot of chest pumping. That was a lot of in your face in the middle of the game. and he got burnt almost every single time.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great example. I know that's like magnified. I mean, he's nowhere near that. But, in Spurs' eyes, we can't even have a microcosm of that.
Yeah. So speaking of Damian Lillard and Portland, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, let's talk about some of these teams in the West and just what you think the landscape looks like 5 games in. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Again, you're listening with Rob from a Bucking Spurs podcast, buckingspurs.com, and Clan Destin from Clan the Spurs Fan on YouTube and Spurs Wave on Instagram. Let's talk about the West really quick, Clan. Okay. So preseason, everyone's talking about, man, the West is so deep. The West is wide open. The Warriors aren't the Warriors anymore, and they're definitely right about that. Warriors are in a lot of trouble now that Curry's out for a few months, and I don't think Klay is going to come back this season. D'Angelo Russell and Draymond Green is your whole team. That's your whole team. Yeah. And I don't think that's good enough in the Western Conference. And right now they're sitting in where are they? They are sitting in the 13th spot. They're third to last in the Western Conference, and I don't see that really changing as the season goes on. But there's a lot of stories here. I think some of the teams that we thought were going to be deep and be competitive in the Western Conference, like the Kings and the Pelicans, I think those were the two that people were like, man, the Kings, the Pelicans, and the Mavs. The Mavs are doing all right. But the Pelicans and the Kings are at the bottom of the West, and we have really only played 2 tough Western Conference teams at this point, 5 games in. That's the Clippers and that's Portland. And going back to that Portland game, man, I don't think Portland might – I think there's a chance they don't make the playoffs. I just don't think they're deep enough. I think their 2 best players are ridiculously good. But beyond that, they're in trouble. Is there anyone? What are your thoughts on the Western Conference right now? Are there any teams that are either worrying you or you're worried about beforehand that you're not so worried about right now?
I'm not. I feel the exact same way as I did at the beginning of the season. As far as the Trailblazers are concerned, I think that when we went against them, the main thing was that we just wore them down. End of the game, I don't think Dame would have shot all those shots if Derek White would have got a break here and there. I mean, he had no break. He was on the entire time at the end. DeJounte's in the game, then you can kind of switch up mismatch and all that. But as far as the Trailblazers, I'm not really worried about them because our biggest strength is going to be wearing teams down with our depth. I mean, because you can see it, like we said earlier, the beginning of these games, the Spurs end up kind of slow. But then as the game kind of goes on and it's going on and on and on, it looks like the other team is getting more and more wore down by so many different players coming in because every time Spurs put somebody in, they're fresh. And, that's just a matter. I think we need to change our starting lineup as the game or the season goes on so we can start off a little stronger. But, yeah, we've looked good. So as far as the rest of the Western Conference, I'm not worried about any of them. If we talk about the Clippers, I think that's probably going to be the biggest test. But, like we said, against the Clippers, I mean, we didn't play that well. I mean, if LA would have just showed up on the offensive end with some scores, we won that game. Kawhi Leonard, I think as the game went on, Pop just kind of said, screw it. And, I mean, we had Marco on him. We had Bryn Forbes on him at some point. So it was just kind of like, we just going to let this one play out, which is fine. We've done that before. So Clippers is probably the biggest threat out of everybody. But I think when it's all said and done, when everyone's fully healthy, DeJounte is getting his minutes, we find out, where we could fit people in a little better. DeMar Carroll didn't play that game. So that's a thing. Yeah. So he wasn't even on Kawhi that game. So, and Kawhi always struggles. It seems like the last 3 games we had, he struggled quite a bit going against the Spurs. This last game didn't really happen because, like I said, you had Marco on him in the second half. So I'm not really worried about anybody but the Clippers. Lakers, we always kind of own LeBron. And I don't know. I mean, can I get into depth about my thing with the Lakers?
Yes. We see them on
Okay,
Sunday.
so-
We see them tomorrow. So, let's
Yeah, you might as well, right?
Yeah.
I guess I'll look stupid tomorrow if we get blown out. But this is my thing with. I got a lot to say. Okay, so with the Lakers, and you got LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the way that they play basketball is, I'm going to hit you in the paint, hit you in the paint, hit you in the paint, hit you in the paint. Which that's all great and dandy. But all of their outside scorers are streaky. Like Avery Bradley's streaky. Danny Green is streaky. KCP, streaky.
Yeah.
Like everyone on their team is streaky. So it's not even a ideal LeBron James team where he drives, kick it out to his shooters. But yet they got him running point.
Yeah.
And I feel like with LeBron's attitude and how he is as a player, he's a great player. If people put him in their top 5, so be it. I'll argue with anyone that says he's the greatest, but that's another discussion for another day. But one thing about LeBron James and big crucial situation where he's going against a really tough team, and hopefully we'll get to display that. He'll display this tomorrow to see what I'm talking about. But if he gets in really tight situations, oftentimes he's capable of disappearing. If it's a big game, he can disappear. When he went against the Warriors a couple years ago, when he was with Cleveland, and he was the only one on the team, and it was basically LeBron or bust. He had 50 points, killed them, and then J.R. Smith makes a mistake, didn't end the game, but makes a big mistake. Mm-hmm. Then they go into overtime, and he just doesn't want to take a shot.
Yeah.
Steph Curry's on him. He's not taking a shot. He's not driving. He just totally disappears. And I think after that game, he went ahead and came to the conclusion that the series is over and I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
That type of attitude, I think, is very bad when he's going against a pop team. Mm-hmm. And when he goes against a pop team, it's always something with him. He'll go against a pop team, and like you remember David Lee coming down, tapping LeBron on his back. Next thing you know, LeBron's crawling on the ground, grabbing his spleen, and and they take him to the locker room because he was getting his ass beat so bad. And then the next game he played fully healthy. Or when Kawhi locked him down with the Spurs and he blamed the jerseys. He said the jerseys were too tight. Mm-hmm. Or we go to the finals and he goes against the Spurs and no one in the entire stadium gets cramped, but here comes LeBron getting cramps, getting carried off the court. So I think that type of attitude going against a San Antonio Spurs team in the playoffs, in the Western Conference, I just don't think it's going to hold up too well for him. And if you go down to Anthony Davis, who's a phenomenal talent, best player, well, he's not the best player on the court. I think LeBron probably is, but he can impose his will probably better than anybody. Yeah. I don't think he really has an alpha dog mentality. He's often compared to Karl Anthony Towns as far as his mentality.
Yeah.
And I think when it's all said and done, he's not going to have that alpha dog in him. So I think with the Lakers, I think they're going to really struggle against big games. They got enough talent to beat plenty of teams and win a lot of games. But I think when it's all said and done, they're going to be in bad situations. Just like game 1, first game of the season, they curled up. They went against the Clippers. Clippers kept bringing it to them. They eventually curled up. And it was basically a home game for them.
Yeah, this is probably what's going to happen for the Lakers in the playoffs, unless they add some type of depth and players that can, like an Iguodala or whatever. But they're going to be getting leads or be in games for the first 5 minutes of the quarter, and then they're just gonna their bench is just going to give it up. They're just not deep. They're just not deep at all, and it's one of those things where I feel like I can base. Like right now, they're 4-1. I bet you by the end of this season, they're first right now in the Western Conference if the playoffs started today, but they don't. I think later on in the year, they're going to be towards the 5th seed, the 7th seed, because as the season goes on, you need depth, and that's what we have, and that's what's going to keep us at the top of the race. But if I'm going to talk about 3 surprises this year so far, just really quickly. One, Timberwolves are 3-1. Good for Cat.
Yeah.
You know, Cat got a little into it with Joel Embiid. You know, see, I guess he's
That's
gonna
awesome.
he's gonna man up, I guess, this year. We'll see how the Timberwolves do, but I think they're kind of in it in the beginning every year, and then they fall off. Second surprise is that the Mavericks are right now sitting in a 4-way tie for the 7th spot, right? Or for the 6th spot. So the Mavs are coming out looking good, and they're going to be in the race just as people thought. But I didn't think Luka and Porzingis were going to look this good. But again, let's see how deep their team is. I don't know who else is on their team besides those two guys, but they're getting it done, and they're sitting in the 8th spot right now. Then my last surprise is the Suns. Rubio and Devin Booker is actually a pretty freaking good pairing. When you think about it, it's like, oh my God, you got one of the best young scorers in Devin Booker, and you finally got him a point guard like Ricky Rubio, who's just going to be looking to set everybody up. And they got rid of a lot of these young guys and brought in veterans, you know, to their team. So it's like, okay, are they going to fight in the bottom of the pack this year? I wouldn't, you know, Ayton's really good, you know, but he's got to deal his whole suspension, deal with that. But I don't know. The Suns might be good. Those are like my 3 teams that are surprising me right now. The Wolves, the Mavs, the Suns are in 10th, but they're in the race. And I mean, again, like I said earlier, man, the Pelicans and the Kings being at the very bottom of the Western Conference right now, sitting at 1-4 and 1-5. I guess the Pelicans need Zion to be competitive, to be that competitive. Because did you see the preseason highlights and games of the Pelicans?
Yeah, it was a lot of alley-oops.
Holy shit, dude. They looked good, man. Zion looked good. They were pushing the ball. They were so fast. They were hitting shots.
Yeah.
Drew Holiday looked really good. Like, if this was going to work, I'm like, oh, shit. They brought in J.J. Redick and I forget who the big guy is. But I was like, oh, man, this is a team that's for real. And they're right here, they're sitting 1-4. Of course, it's early. Maybe when they get Zion back, they climb up a little bit. But this Western Conference race is so packed that if you have a bad start, I mean, you're fighting an uphill battle the rest of the year, and that's why the Mavs coming out 3-2 strong is a surprise. The Timberwolves coming out 3-1. I don't know who they've played, you know, what the quality of games that they've been in, but those are teams that you didn't think were really going to be in the mix. The Wolves, the Mavs, and the Suns, and here they are, kind of in the race. So it's early, but you know, the Rockets are sitting in 7th. And I don't think the Rockets' whole experiment is going to work. And I don't think they're going to change it. I don't think they're going to move Russell Westbrook after just getting him or sitting him down like they did Carmelo, you know, because he just does not work in this system. Either Russell Westbrook is going to figure it out and learn how to work in this system, or the Rockets are going to struggle and they're going to be down there fighting for spots in this playoff race because you have the Jazz, who's looking tough. You have the Nuggets, who are going to be in there for sure. So I think your top 6 seeds right now, Lakers, Spurs, well, not the Wolves. The Wolves might fall off. But Jazz, Clippers, Nuggets, those 5 teams, you know, that leaves you with 3 more spots. You know, who's going to get them? I don't know.
What's their record, the Rockets?
Right now they're 3-2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of the freaking Rockets, man. First off, I mean, we're comparing everything to the Spurs. I mean, Mike D'Antoni gets owned by Popovich all the time. I don't think there's ever been a playoff series where he's beat Pop ever. I could be wrong, but I don't think
you're right.
so.
You're right.
Yeah.
We own that guy.
Yeah.
We own him. Yes.
Yeah, he owns him, and then on top of it, James Harden, I don't believe in his game. Like, I think that he's a phenomenal player, but I think at the same time, the way that he plays it's a lot of foul calls. I don't understand some of the fouls he gets, to be honest with you, but it's a lot of foul calls. It's a lot of going to the line, free throws. It's a lot of ISO ball. And I think that when it's all said and done, the reason why he loses so often when he gets in the playoffs is because he's relying on that, but the deeper you get in the playoffs, the less calls you're going to get. And then on top of it, with Westbrook, you take out Chris Paul, add Westbrook. I think everyone would agree that as a player, technically Westbrook is better. But I just think that overall, I felt like Chris Paul brought something to the team where it was a certain amount of toughness, a certain amount of basketball IQ. He kept getting into it with Harden because of the way that they were playing. Which Chris Paul, if you remember I think it was the year before, he had a pretty good. He was kind of leading the team, in my opinion, when they went against the Warriors in the finals, Western Finals. He was kind of the leader, and he played championship basketball, and it was tough. And he has the ability, if need be, to stand there and shoot threes or facilitate. And Westbrook isn't like that. Westbrook has to have the ball in his hands. And even the way that he plays isn't championship basketball. So I just have a hard time believing Mike D'Antoni, who doesn't have a championship system, James Harden, who doesn't play championship ball, and Westbrook, who don't play championship ball, they can, make any noise going against a Popovich team. And I'm not saying that our stars play the, championship ball. I don't think DeRozan or LA's game necessarily is championship level, but our amount of depth, and if it looks like it was pretty contagious, if people kind of go with DJ as far as DJ's defensive leadership, and it kind of rubs off on the other players, and Derek White's out there with them, and and Lonnie gets better and he gets his minutes, I think we very well could look like a championship contender. But right now, as far as the Rockets, I'm not concerned. There's no one in the West that genuinely scares me, other than the Clippers, and that's just because their amount of defense, and they have a coach that's been there, and they have a star who got 2 championships. So that's the thing that if I was scared of anybody, probably that would scare me the most. But at the same time, I feel like we could end up handling them too.
Yeah,
So
I feel like
I'm not too concerned.
Yeah, we're good enough to beat anybody. I feel like right now our depth gives us that edge, like you said. And I think the Clippers are tough. They're definitely someone we don't want to run into. And I'm still waiting to see how we come out and play against Denver and Utah. I feel like those are the 2 other teams that can be very good and can give us a punch in the mouth, and that we might not be able to come back from. But that's still TBD. Like, I thought Portland was going to be one of these teams that we were going to have to really battle it out with this season. And I know the first game was a battle, but if it wasn't for Damian Lillard, heroic fourth quarter, like just going nuts on us, we handle that game easily. And they don't have depth. A lot of these teams don't have depth, but the ones that do, we'll see how it goes this season. But all right, Destin. Oh, what's up, man? You got one more thing?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say something because I know there's Nuggets fans that said this, and I just wanted your quick thoughts on it. They feel as if, or I've seen on some Nuggets pages, they feel as if Jamal Murray, is it Jamal Murray?
Yeah.
Is that his name? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
They feel like he's overrated. They don't like just from a big consensus, I've seen a lot of people say that they don't like that contract. They say Jokic is going to be fine, but they do not like that Murray contract. So, and we know from experience in Spurs fans that we've seen Murray be a little arrogant. We've seen a little arrogance from him going against us. I think that maybe that's going to hurt them. I mean, what do you think as far as his contract and all that?
I think that
his attitude.
Murray as a player, I like him, and hey, man, he did us dirty in a few games last year in the playoffs. So here in my respect there, and if he's gonna be a long-term problem for us for years to come in the Western Conference, I think that's to be determined. I think his game is pretty mature right now, and let's see if he kind of elevates as he grows older and more experience with this Denver team. But I'm not mad because he's a really good point guard, and in the Western Conference, you need a really good point guard, and they have one. So at the end of the day, I think it's a good piece to have. I wouldn't be mad about it if I was a Denver Nugget fan, but I'm not.
Nah.
But all right, man. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, man. Thanks for stopping by. Why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, which is Clan the Spurs Fan, CLAN, Clan the Spurs Fan. You can find me on Instagram, Spurs Wave, and Twitter. Well, also on Facebook and Twitter. Just look up Clan the Spurs Fan. So on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Clan the Spurs Fan. On Instagram, Spurs Wave.
All right, man. Well, that's awesome. Of course, you guys can find all of our content at buckingspurs.com, the podcast feed, YouTube stuff, and it's all coming at you wherever you get your podcast jam on. This will be there. So thanks for tuning in, Spurs Nation. We'll catch you on the next one. Go Spurs, go.
We got a recipe they want to eat, but we leaving bones. So Clippers, Lakers, Western Conference, time to go home. We back. Now before you think this record is dissing, we just don't want to have to put the whole league in assistant living. We on a mission. Refs cheating like they Tristan, but the league will always be a pretty pot to piss in. Your team is skippy, but my squad is trippy, D is gritty, lock you up like 69. You must be sniffing lines if you think we losing now. Popping Becky and steady and ready to commit the crimes. Super teams built their team overnight to the moon. My team took some time and we built it like Rome. My legacy will forever be embedded